Hello everyone, welcome to the online class. It's good to see you again. The last class we have completed third unit of your MPMC syllabus. So as per my knowledge, so whenever you are learning any topics, we should not see the syllabus first. Okay, so how much topics we have learned, how many topics we have learned for in that particular subject. So that's the matter. And but as a student, you are interested to complete the syllabus in the to complete the topics in the form of syllabus. Okay, so that's why I have given unit 4 as a topic here, name here in this PPT. And today we are going to see about some topics in your unit 4. Okay, so let's start. And this entire unit 4 is regarding your 8051 microcontroller programming. Okay, what is meant by program? So program is nothing but set of instructions, right? Why you need to write the program? To make your life easier. So at the end of the day, who is executing the program? Your microprocessor. Okay, so your microcontroller is also having your microprocessor. That means you are studying this subject to make your life easier. So if you want to make your life difficult, don't study this subject. So if you want to make life easier, you will study this subject. Okay. Okay, now, so at the end of the day, we are going to the processor is the only object or only thing in this planet to execute your program. Okay, now if you want to tell your if there is any computer, okay, so that means there should be some programming should be involved, right? Now if you take any programming language, so if you want to tell your computer and if you want the computer to give you the required output based upon your inputs, so you need to tell the computer in the form of its language, right? So whenever I'm speaking to you, so you can able to understand my language, right? Similarly, computers does not understand our natural languages. But nowadays, so when I'm discussing this thing, it is actually a 50 years back subject. Okay, 50 years back they have developed. During that time, I'm discussing this thing, right? Nowadays, we can see our processors can able to understand our natural language. Like if you ask, okay Google, turn on this light, automatically will turn on. Okay, so that means our computers has upgraded so much due to some advancements in the technologies, so that it can able to understand our natural language also. But during the 50 years back, there is no such technologies are there. So that's why during those times the computers cannot able to understand our natural languages. That's why you need to tell your computer in the form of its languages. Okay, so generally if you take any programming language like your C++, Java, JavaScript, Lisp, Ruby, Go, Kotlin, Python, there are many languages out there, and you tell me which language you will use for your programming your 8051 microcontroller. Okay, generally if you take any computer or any microprocessor or any microcontroller, at the end of the day, what is a language it is understood in the form of ones and zeros. Okay, only the computers will understand values like ones and zeros. So you know what is mean by one, what is zero. So one means your 5 volts power supply and zero means your ground. So the computers even does not understand ones and zeros, but it understand only voltages. That's why your computers requires power supply. Okay, during the execution of your program, it will consume some power, right? Why? Because of this reason. So computers understand only voltages, not ones and zeros. But human beings cannot understand the voltage levels. That's why we made that voltage level as 5 volts as 1 and ground as 0. Okay, for human convention, we are using this one. And you tell me, whenever if you ask to write a program, will you write in the ones and zeros? Obviously no, right? So if you want to write a program in the ones and zeros, the other person even cannot able to understand that program. So if you try to give that program to your friend, so please tell me what is this program, he cannot able to tell you, right? Even after writing this ones and zeros program, even after some time, if you try to look understand this ones and zeros program written by you itself, you cannot able to decode that one, right? So that is a drawback of your ones and zeros language. That is called a machine level language, right? So that's why they have invented, they have developed some other languages to make our human life easier. okay, to make the other humans also to understand. Okay, the whoever is writing the program in the ones and zeros, they are not human beings, they are aliens. Okay. Okay, now the because of this reason, so machine language is does not understand by the human beings. That's why they have developed some other languages called high level language. Okay, between the machine level language and high level language, so machine level language is also called as low level languages. Okay, so in between machine level language and high level language, there is another language called assembly level language. Okay, assembly language. Now today we are going to see what is assembly level language and what are the different assembler directives in that assembly level language. Okay, now if you take high level languages, why the high level languages are needed? Because the human can able to understand it easily, and also we can able to implement that program easily. Okay, because these programming languages, high level programming languages, all are in the form of English alphabets and English words. Okay, that's why any human being can able to understood if he is educated, right? And if you take some other high level of these languages, nowadays most of them are using visual languages. You know what is mean by visual language? Now you are around 2020, now you are studying about the Python in your college, right? But if you take your niece or your third class or fourth class people, they are learning the Python languages. If you don't know, please ask your school, any of your friends, kids or etc. So they can able to tell you that there are some kids, they are learning Python, okay, during their third class and fourth class itself, and they are not writing the programming in the form of syntax etc. They are writing the program in the form of visual languages. So visual languages means like just like drag and drop. So whenever there is some code blocks are available, so whenever if you just drag and drop that code blocks, automatically code will be generated in the background. So why they have developed that visual languages is only they are concentrating on the logics, not the syntaxes. Okay, so that's why there is a visual language appeared, but that is not the topic for today. But we are going to see what is meant by assembly level language. Okay, because it is not in the syllabus, and also we need to see what is some advantage. So because of the machine level language, we cannot able to understood. That's why they have developed assembly level language. Later they have developed some high level languages. Okay, now if you take this picture is telling that whenever if you are using any high level language, there will be a easy to write, easy to understand etc. And also flexibility means we can expand that code. Okay, we can add some more code to it etc. And portability, that means we can able to write the program in one system, you can able to execute the program in another system also. But whereas in your, if you take your machine level language, assembly level language, it is a processor specific. So if you try to write the program in one processor, so that the same program cannot be executed in another processor. But it is not the case for high level languages. Okay, that's why we switched back to your high level languages nowadays. And the next one, coming to your drawback of the high level languages, so speed of the execution is very slow compared to your machine level language and assembly level language. The speed of execution is very slow in the high level language. Okay, and also you cannot able to access entire processor features of if you take any processor, and whenever if you're writing any program, you cannot able to access full features of the processor. Okay, so that cannot be possible in the help of high level language. But with the help of assembly level language, I can able to access the full features of the processor. Okay, that's why we are learning about assembly level language. Okay, now we will see what is the assembly level language and what is its advantage. And if you take the advantage, it is processor specific. And what is a processor specific? So whenever if you write any processor, we can access individual registers and individual components of the processor. Okay, with the help of this assembly level language. And coming to your another advantage is compact. So that means it will take some less memory compared to your high level language. Why? Because if you take high level language like C or Java, you can see there is a declaration of variables like integer, floating point, character, string, etc. But in assembly level language, those data types are not needed. So data types occupies some memory space in your program. That's why we are not using any data types in assembly level language, so that the assembly level language is taking very less memory in your storage. Okay, and coming to your next advantage is we can use only few assembly instructions to write some drivers. So whenever if you try to install, whenever if you are connected to USB, it will give you a notification like installing the driver. Okay, sometimes the drivers are not available, so those drivers will be written in the assembly level language. So in future, if you are an embedded engineer or electronics engineer, you can come to know that. Now for writing that software, that means writing the programs for the drivers requires only few assembly instructions. Okay, and also these assembly instructions also having some less rules and restrictions. So if you take your high level language, there are more rules. Okay, there should be some case sensitive and everything. So here there are some less rules are there compared to other high level language, so that we can able to implement easily. And coming to the next advantage, important one is bottom up design. What is bottom up design means, suppose if you want to develop a full program, okay, that big program, now that big program can be divided into small parts, and we will develop individual parts of that program. Later we can able to combine that program. Okay, that is called a bottom up design. So that will be supported by your assembly level language. Okay, assembly language. Now if you take any language, obviously at the end of the day that should be converted into ones and zeros. Why? Because our computers understand only in the form of ones and zeros. Okay, now if you take your assembly language, so assembly level language is not ones and zeros, you know that, but still we need to convert that assembly level language to ones and zeros. Who will convert that one? There is a program called assembler. Okay, that assembler will convert that assembly code into machine level code, that is called your object code. Okay, now if you take some high level language, C, Java, Python, etc. Now these also these also not ones and zeros. Obviously at the end of the still that high level language code is converted into ones and zeros. Who will convert that one? Compilers. Okay, for C language, C compiler, Python language, Python compiler, for Java, Java compiler, etc. For each and every language there is individual dedicated compilers are available to convert the high level language code into object code, which is a machine understandable language. Okay, now in your assembly level language, who will convert that code? Assembler. In high level languages, compiler. So do you understand, right? So what is a main difference between your assembler and compilers? Okay, now we will see. After converting object code, that means your assembly code or high level code is converted into object code. Now you need to dump that code into your microprocessor or microcontroller. Okay, now this is your source code. Source code is also, we are calling it as assembly code. Now you have written some program. That program is converted by your assembler. So assembler will convert that program into ones and zeros. So actually it will not convert exactly ones and zeros. It is converted in the form of hexadecimal numbers. I'm sure your computers always understood in the form of hexadecimal numbers. Okay, you know hexadecimal number system, right? So assembler will convert that one into hexadecimal numbers, and later one program called loader. Okay, whenever if you take any program like your run, just like if you take any software, if you hit the run button, so it will dump that program into the processor. The processor will execute that program. Similarly, whenever if you click that run button, immediately a program will run. So what is that program is called a loader. So that loader program, what it will do is whatever the program which is converted into hexadecimal number, that is your object code, will be loaded into your microprocessor or your microcontroller. Okay, so this is your how the program is going to dump in your microprocessor. Okay, now if you take any language, okay, there should be some rules. So before learning any language, we need to understand what are the some limitations of that language, what are some rules to be followed. Okay, so if you take like C language, there should be some semicolon, open brackets and close brackets. Okay, so there are so many rules and regulations are there for the C language. Similarly, we are also having some rules and regulations for your assembly level language. So these are the some of your basic important rules. One thing is here. First one is assembly code must be written in uppercase letters. So it is actually case sensitive. Okay, which means we need to write only instructions in the form of uppercase letter, capital letters only. And we are using some labels. Okay, so that labels must be followed by the colon. So if you don't put colon to that label, it will throw you an error. Assembler will throw you an error. Okay, what is meant by label? Just like if you try to buy a product, so you will see the label, what is its price, what is its description, manufacturing date, etc. Similarly, if you take any instruction, so the instruction, by looking at that label itself, I can able to know what is the instruction mean. To understand the code flow, I will use the labels. So labels are given by the human beings, or that means your programmers. Okay, so it depends upon you, you will give the names of the labels. And the rule is at the end of the day, the label should be followed with a colon. Okay, next, there we are using some symbols. Okay, in that symbols, while declaring that symbols and labels, we should not start with the letter. So actually there should be start with a letter. You should not start any label name or symbol name with any numbers or special characters. Okay. And if you write any program, you will include some comments. So all comments must be typed in the lowercase letter to avoid between this instruction or a comment. Okay. All the instructions are in uppercase letters, all the comments are in lowercase letters. Okay. The next one is your end directive. So whenever if you try to end the program, you should use one directive called end directive. Okay. We are going to see what is a directive means. Okay. Now if you take your assembly level language, so assembly level language is generally we are rating in the form of mnemonics. So mnemonics means it is a English characters, so English alphabetical characters, alphabetical words, so which is in the form of alphabetic characters. Now if you take this as a instruction, so this is your mnemonic, and this is, we are calling it as a instruction. So instruction consists of two parts. I'm sure you know this. One is opcode on the left side part of this instruction, and the right side part is your operands. So where you will put this data and you will perform some operation on it. So opcode will specify what is the operation to be performed on the data. So data is specified in your operands. Okay. Now you understood, right? What is in mnemonics? What is the structure of your assembly level language. Okay. Now we will see the structure of your assembly program in your 8051 microcontroller. For every processor or for every microcontroller, there are different structures. So majority of the structures will be similar, and there will be slight changes. Okay. Now if you take your 8051 assembly level language program, you will see we are writing some instructions. Okay. So this is instruction. Before the instructions, I will use the label. So label will be any name, depends upon you what is the name you are giving for that label. Okay. And at the end of the instruction, we can able to use the comments. So this is optional. Okay. Label is also optional. Okay. So instruction is mandatory obviously. So comments and labels are optional, depends upon you. Now if you take one example for this label, so this is the one instruction, move a comma 24h, you will write some label, test label. So that is your, depends upon you, you can write any name of this label, and this is a comment. Now you see here, we can able to use double slash for these comments, also semicolon for the comments. So whenever if you write some text after the semicolon, which means this is your comment. Okay. So this is your structure of your 8051 assembly program, any assembly program. Now we are going to see the assembler directives. Okay. This is a whole, this whole class is discuss this is a whole class. I am going to discuss assembler directives. And what is meant by assembler directives? The name itself indicates it is directing the assembler. Okay. Who is assembler? Assembler is converting the assembly program into machine level language. That is your ones and zeros. Okay. It is just like instructions, but this instruction will, it does not affect any programming. Okay. If you write one program, you will write the, in that program we are having instructions. In that instructions also, in that program also, we will write directives. So directives will look like instructions, but does not affect any this program. Okay. It is just, it is telling that assembler what to do, what not to do. Okay. This is a mean by assembler directives. Okay. There are a few assembler directives which can affect the 8051 microcontroller program, except your this is the DB and DW directive. We are going to see what are those directives later. Now we understood, right, what is assembler directives. So assembler directives will tell the assembler what you need to do the next process, next processing. Okay. So it is not affecting the program. Now these assembler directives are, there are hundreds of assembler directives, but I am give you a brief idea on few assembler directives which we are going to use regularly in the program. Important directives only. Okay. These are divided into 5 different categories. One is assembler state control, symbol definition, storage initialization, program linkage, and segment selection. And we are going to see one by one now. Now first we will see the assembler state control. Okay. Now the first one is org. So if you take your C language, so what is the first line? You will write void main, right? So hash include str.h, you remove that crap. So whenever if you want to start the program execution, you will start with the void main. So whenever if you write the void main, then the program will start from that particular point of time. Okay. And similarly, whenever if you write any assembly program, you must and should use this org directive. Okay, this org directive will tell that microcontroller that So I am starting the assembler program from this address location. Okay. After writing this org, I will use some address. Okay. From that address location, my program will begin. Okay. We will see with one example there. Now see here, this is one program, assembler program. Don't look at that program. What is that program is indicating? But here my main point is org000h. Okay, which is telling that assembler this program is starting with the address location from 00h. From that next address onwards, we can able to increment the address and store the program inside that memory locations. Okay, the starting address location of the program is 00h. Who is giving that direction to the assembler? Org. Okay, now I understood, right, what is meant by org. Okay, and coming to the next directive, end directive, just like starting and ending of the program. So starting of the program will be indicated by your org directive, and ending of the program will be indicated by the end directive. So end directive means it will tell the processor, or if you tell the assembler, I am ending the program. Okay, now whenever if the assembler sees this end directive in the program, then it will stop assembling that program. That means it will stop converting that program to machine level language. So after end directive, if you try to write anything, it won't convert by the assembler. Okay, now if you take this simple program, this is org00h, that means this is one program which is starting from the 000h memory location, and there are some few instructions, and the last, you can see the last line is should be end. So whenever if you try to if you write end here, that means this is the ending of the program. Whenever if you write org, this is called your starting of your program. Okay, so this is how we are going to set the program starting location and ending location. Okay, the next address, next assembler directive is using. Okay, using directive. Now just like in this name, we are using something. So what is it we are using is, there are register banks. I'm sure you know that 8051 microcontroller has total 32 general purpose registers. Now the 32 general purpose registers we cannot able to access directly. Okay, that's why we cannot, we are going to divide that one into 4 register banks: bank 0, bank 1, bank 2, and bank 3. Okay, now the register bank consists of R0 to R7. Each register bank consists of R0 to R7. Okay, that is your total 8 registers. Now you can use any of the 8 registers from any of the bank. Okay, now that means you need to select which register bank I want to use. Okay, now by the help of this using expression or using instruction directive, we can able to tell that which register bank I am using. So this is a syntax using expression. So expression means you will give the number of the register bank. I'm sure you know there are 4 register banks: register bank 0, bank 1, bank 2, and bank 3, and each and every register bank consists of R0 to R7. Okay, now here I am doing the push operation, push R2. What is the push operation? I am loading this value into the stack pointer. Okay, stack memory location. Now which in R2 also consists, I mean in R2 register will be in register bank 0, bank 1, bank 2, bank 3. Now you tell me which register, in which register bank I am using this R2. That will be tell by your this directive using 3. So using 3 means in third register bank I am using R2. Okay, now the same R2 can be also used, but I am using the in the register from register bank 1. From register bank 1 I am using the register R2. Okay, so this is how we can able to specify the uh, register banks. So which register bank I am using and which register I am using. Okay, with the help of this directive, using directive. And that is about your assembler state control. And the next is your symbol definition. Okay, so in symbol definition we are going to see one by one. The first one is your segment. So if you pay attention to your 8086 microprocessor, the entire memory is divided into actually 16 logical segments. So we can access only 4 logical segments among that. And those 4 logical segments are core segment, data segment, extra segment, and stack segment. Okay, what is meant by segment? A segment is nothing but a part of a memory, a block of code, etc. Okay, what is it? Which is having a starting address location and ending address location. That is called segment. Okay, with the help of segmenting concept, I can able to access the program easily. You know that segmentation concept, why it is came to the picture. Okay, and similarly, if you want to use those segments concept in your 8051 microcontroller also, you need to specify a name for a segment. Suppose there is a code segment. Okay, Now for that code segment, you can give a name like my program. So that is user defined. You can give any name to that one. So my program consists of only code, okay, not any data or any extra data, right? So this is how I can able to specify the a code to given to the some specific name with the help of a segment directive. Whenever if you write a segment here, now that code will be given to your my program. Okay, that means some name. That is your segment. Next one is EQU. So EQU is nothing but abbreviation is equate. So by looking at that name, we already find out that it is nothing but equation equals to. Okay, whenever if you take your C language, so you will write like x is equals to 2. Okay, what does it mean? It is you are giving that 2 is giving to the x, right? So this is your variable, this is your value. Similarly, whenever if you want to try to give the value to the variable, then you need to use one directive called EQU. Okay, now see here and here 1200 is given to which value? Limit. So the limit is nothing but one variable name, and that limit is given to this 1200. Who is giving that one? EQU. Okay, so that means it is actually exactly like it is assigning some value to a symbol, okay, or variable. Okay, this is how I can able to give the values to that particular symbols or name. Now there is one problem in this equate. Once you will give that symbol, I mean once you will give that value to that particular symbol, you cannot change that value again. Okay, that means it is fixed. Once you will try, suppose here I am using limit. Okay, now limit is given to 1200. Now if you try to change that limit again in somewhere of your program, okay, you cannot able to change it. Why? Because it is fixed, which is given by the EQU, equate. Okay, and to avoid that problem, we got a set directive. So this set directive will avoid that problem in the equate, but which means I can use I can able to give some different values to the same variable again and again in the program. If you take this example, this value, this is a value variable, and I'm giving 100. Okay, who is giving that one? Set. Now if you observe, the same value variable also used for the another, it is assigning some value, different value, right? Like 50, 100 by 2, this is nothing but 50. Now here there is an option to give the different values to the same variable name, whereas in your EQU, so it is not possible. Okay, that is the difference between EQU and set. Okay, and coming to the next assembler directives: bit, code, data, internal data and external data. I data means internal data and external data. Okay, now it is what this directives will indicate is, so if you take any segments like your bit, I mean code segment, data segment, etc. Okay, now each and if you take any data like bit, code, etc., now you will give that address. Okay, a address is given to one symbol. Okay, now there is a symbol. Okay, for that symbol, if you want to assign a address, okay, it may be a bit, it may be a code, it may be a data, internal data or external data. Okay, that will be given by this directive. If you take this bit, so bit is nothing but single bit, either 1 or 0. For that you can give the address. Okay, and this is a restart. So if you want to try to give address to this variable, you can use 00h, and that is your code. Okay, so this is how we can able to give the addresses to the variable with the help of these directives. Okay, the next one is storage initialization. And coming to the storage initialization, I'm sure you figured out already. Storage initialization means memory initialization. Now there is a one directive called DS. Okay, define space. So whenever if you try to write like DS is DS space 8. Okay, which is telling that there is a time. This is nothing but your label. It is not going to affect anything. It is telling that program, please reserve 8 bytes of data. So you see the definition. So number of bytes will be specified. That means some amount of memory will be made free to store some data. Okay, how many bytes of memory you want to store, that will be specified with the help of this directive. Okay, whenever if you try DS8, that means it is freeing 8 bytes of data. It is allocating 8 bytes of data to store something. Okay, so if you try to write a 16, it will assign 16 bytes of data. Okay, now similarly, just like DS, if you want to reserve only one bit, not bytes, one bit, either 1 or 0, you can use this directive called dbit. Okay, So D bit means we can either, it will assign either one bit at a time to this any variable. Okay. And the next one is a defined byte. So defined byte means whenever if you want to specify how many number of bytes you want, you can use this defined byte directive. Now see here, uh, this is your defined byte example, defined byte 10. So what does it mean? 10 here indicates, so 10 is nothing but your decimal number system. So decimal number system you can able to store in the address location 000. Here you are telling that you can able to assign 1 byte to store the hexadecimal, your decimal number. Now coming to the DB30H, whenever if I write H here, that means it is nothing but your hexadecimal number, right? And there is a string. So string is nothing but group of characters. So group of characters means each and every character will occupy 1 byte of memory. Okay. Now see here the starting address your 00H, okay, which is taken by the decimal number. Now decimal number occupies 1 byte. So the next byte will occupy your hexadecimal number, that is 001. And how many string, how in a string character, I mean string here, STRING, total 6 characters are there. So 6 characters will occupy 6 bytes. So from 000 to 0007. So and I understood, right? And similarly, if you want to store binary in the form of binary, you can use this one. Okay, you must and should use, you need to specify the B here. Okay, and this is your 16 bit. So you cannot able to store directly 16 bit numbers into your bytes. That's why whenever if you try to give the 16 bit number 1234H, it will take the only the lower byte. Okay, because it will occupy only 1 byte of memory. So this is 2 bytes of data, right? 1234. So it will take the lower byte first. Now if you want to store a 16 bytes of data, then you can use this DW, defined word. Word is nothing but your 16 bit data. It is just like your defined byte, but it will take the 16 bit of data at a time. Okay. The next one is your program linkage. So program linkage means whenever if you take two programs, okay, in one program, the public directory I'm talking about, in one program I am having one variable. Okay. Now if I want to use that variable in another program, then I can declare that variable as public. Okay. So if you know the advanced languages like Java or Python, you can use this concept. So public, static, okay, private, etc. Whenever if you give some variable name as a public, that means I can able to use the same variable in the another program. Okay. So this is how I can able to specify the variable name. So whenever if I write public, okay, this is called variables, variable names. Okay, get a token, get number, etc. What are these variables are declared as a public? Public means I can use this variable in another program also. Okay. Now if you want to use the same variable in another program, then you must and should use the extern symbol. Now in previous example, I have used get number. Okay, this is one variable name which is public, right? Now I want to use in, there is a two programs. In first program I have declared the get number as a public. In the second program I want to use the same get number variable which of the first program. Now with the help of extern, see here extern. So in the extern there is a get number, right? So this is the variable name. Now I am using the same variable name of the first program in the second program with the help of extern. So always whenever if you want to use the variables of your variables or symbols of the another program, you should use the, you must and should use the external directives. Okay. The next one is name. Now one assembler, what it will do, it will convert the assembly level language code into machine understandable language, that is called object code. Okay. And apart from object code, there is an object module. So object module consists of object code. Now whenever the assembler converts that one into object code or object module, there will be some name will be given automatically. Okay. So who will give that name? The assembler itself. But if you want to if you want to change the name, okay, you can change that name with the help of this name directive. Okay. So if you try to write a name parse module, so after assembler will convert in that object, after converting the assembler code into object code, object module, that object module name is given by this. Okay. Whatever the name you specified here, that same name will be given to your object module. Okay. The next one is a segment selection. So I'm sure you're having segments, okay, code segment, data segment, extra segment, and stack segment. So that segments can be selected with the help. So which segment I want to operate at that particular time, I can able to use some directives for that. the first one directive is R segment, which is called relocatable segment. Whenever if you take any segment, okay, which is having fixed starting address and ending address, that is called absolute segments, okay, which we cannot able to change it's the starting address and the ending address of the location. But if you want to change the starting address and ending address, that means you want to relocate the same segments into some part of the memory. So segments means a block of code or block of memory. If you want to change the block of memory starting address and ending address, I can use this a directive called R segment, RSCG, which is called relocatable segment. Okay, whenever if you try to write R segment stack, which is relocatable, that means there is no fixed starting address, there is no fixed ending address. Okay, and the remaining segments, C segment, D segment, X segment, I segment, and B segment, okay, these are all called absolute segments. I told you, whenever any segment has a fixed memory location which is having starting address and ending address, if I want to use that fixed memory location segments, I will use any of these directives. Okay, what these directives indicates: for C segment, code segment, CG indicates the code segment, absolute segment. D segment indicates, so it is a data segment. X segment indicates external data segment, I mean extra data segment. Okay, I segment indicates internal data. Okay, so this is how we can able to select the segments so which I want to operate. Okay, so this is all about today's class, and this is the end of the session. So if you are having any doubts, you can feel free to ask me. You can unmute yourself and you can put it in the chat box.